Hello, and welcome to a new edition of Need to Know, a series of video interviews with companies who are shaping, creating, and innovating in the games industry today, and whose work will have a huge impact going forwards into the future. Today, I'm delighted to welcome samar.shams, Managing Partner at Changes Immigration, here to talk to us today about the global talent visa in relation to the games industry here in the UK. Before we get going, Shamar, it's lovely to meet you. Lovely to have you on board. And do you want to tell our viewers a little bit about your background and what it is that you do at Changes Immigration?
Sure. So as managing partner of Changes Immigration, I both manage the business and handle the legal matters, so supervise all legal matters. We handle business and personal immigration matters, including the global talent visa applications and skilled worker applications, sponsor licenses. And then on the personal side, things like partner visa applications, settlement, and citizenship.
Wonderful. No, that's really good to know. Really good to know. So we should jump straight in then. Do you want to sort of talk us through some of the benefits of the global talent visa?
Sure. The main benefits are twofold. So first of all, the global talent visa allows for a lot of flexibility in terms of work conditions. And then it also allows for advancing to settlement or indefinite leave to remain in the UK with relative ease. So in terms of the work conditions, a global talent visa holder does not need a sponsored job offer, and they're not tied to any particular employment in the UK. They are authorized to work on an employed basis or a self-employed basis. And then in terms of advancing to settlement, a lot of UK business visa and work visa options have quite narrow and restrictive requirements that have to be met at the settlement stage. So the other main benefit of the global talent visa is the relative ease with which you satisfy business requirements at the settlement stage. The main requirement at the settlement stage is simply to have earned money in the field for which you have been endorsed for global talent.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I guess it'd be interesting as well to sort of understand who can apply for the global talent visa.
Sure. So there are two main types of applicants for global talent. There are technical applicants and business applicants. So technical applicants would include software engineers and video game developers, UX, UI designers, as well as machine learning experts, cybersecurity experts, AI experts, etc. Business applicants would be people who have held C-suite positions in SMEs, or they've been head of operations for a digital business. They could be in, various sectors within tech. And they might be experienced product managers, etc. So both those types of technical and business applicants might be eligible for the global talent visa.
Absolutely. And what would the sort of process for applying for the global talent visa sort of look like?
So it's a two-stage process. The first stage involves applying for endorsement from an approved endorsing body. For the tech sector, the endorsing body is Tech Nation. So you would first have to apply for endorsement from Tech Nation. And then if you are endorsed by Tech Nation as a leading talent in tech or someone with the potential to become a leader in tech, then you proceed to the second stage of the application process, which is the actual visa application for your global talent visa.
Okay, and out of curiosity, then, sort of going back to the endorsement criteria, I mean, what are Tech Nation sort of looking for in terms of for their assessment for the global talent visa?
So there are mandatory criteria. and then optional criteria where you can choose from 4 different criteria. So in terms of the mandatory criteria, first of all, everything you provide with an endorsement application to Technation has to relate to the last 5 years immediately preceding the endorsement application. So projects you've worked on or roles you've held earlier than 5 years before the application can't be relied on. In terms of the mandatory criteria, the Technation is looking for recognition of you as a leading talent in the digital technology sector at product-led businesses. So in terms of recognition, that has to be recognition at the national or international level. They're looking for third-party recognition, so you wouldn't really be able to rely entirely on support from colleagues to meet the mandatory criteria. They're looking for things like publications, speaking engagements, awards in terms of recognition. And then in terms of being a leading talent, they're looking to see that you have expertise that's really at the very forefront of your field. They're looking for innovation and your contribution in particular to innovation at digital tech businesses. And they want to see, in terms of proving that you're a leading talent, that you've been successful. The product that you've worked on has to have been commercially successful or attracted investment. You'll be required to prove that kind of thing to show that you're a leading talent. And then in terms of being in the digital technology sector, this is one element of the mandatory criteria that's often overlooked, but it's very important actually because Technation requires the relevant businesses to be digital tech businesses that are product-led. So that means that a digital tech service or product or platform hardware is their primary revenue source. And processing of data or creation of computing hardware, creation of software, that's often going to be central to their business model. So that's the mandatory criteria. And then you can choose 2 of 4 optional criteria, which are innovation as a founder or senior executive of a product-led digital technology company, or as an employee working on a new digital field or concept. So the latter would be the technical applicants. Proof of recognition for your work beyond your occupation that contributes to the advancement of digital technology. It's another optional criteria you could rely on. Or one of the very popular criteria people usually rely on is having made significant technical, commercial, or entrepreneurial contributions to the field, again, as a founder, senior executive, board member, or employee of a product-led digital technology company. And then finally, the 4th optional criteria you can rely on is having demonstrated exceptional ability in the tech field by academic contributions. And those would be reflected in research that's published or endorsed by an expert.
That's really interesting. There's quite a lot of different sort of avenues to sort of explore for potential candidates. It's very, very interesting. I think it'd be really helpful as well just to sort of touch upon some of the things that you mentioned at the beginning of this talk. I mean, you talked about dependence and settlement and citizenship.
Happy to talk about how the Global Talent Visa allows for dependents to come. So you can bring your spouse or an unmarried partner that you've been in a relationship akin to marriage with for at least 2 years, or your civil partner to the UK with you. You can bring children under the age of 18. And if those children reach the age of 18 whilst they're here as your dependents, they will still be allowed to progress to settlement with you. In terms of settlement, I mentioned that the business criteria are pretty relaxed compared to other routes. Other criteria that apply at the settlement stage relate to limits on absences. So there are two tracks that somebody might apply for under the global talent route where they're endorsed by Tech Nation. There's the exceptional talent track and there's the exceptional promise track. So exceptional talent are for applicants who are further along in their careers. So they've been working in digital tech for 5 years or more. And exceptional promise applicants are those that have not yet been working in the sector for 5 years. If you're an exceptional talent, global talent visa holder, you may be eligible to apply for settlement after 3 years in the UK. And if you're an exceptional promise global talent visa holder, you might be eligible after 5 years. Your dependent's eligibility would align with yours in terms of the residence required. Now, in terms of absences, whether you are applying on the basis of 3 years or 5 years, you must not have been absent from the UK for more than 180 days in any 12-month period during the qualifying period. So that doesn't mean counting back in 12-month periods from the date of application. It doesn't mean calendar years. It means any 12-month period in that qualifying period. So it's kind of a rolling calculation. And so that's going to apply at the settlement stage for global talent visa holders. And you'll also have to demonstrate English language at that stage, which unusually global talent visa applicants don't have to do at the initial stage. And you'll have to sit and pass the Life in the UK test. So you'll have to answer questions about Queen Victoria and the Rolling Stones. And then you would complete, gather all the documentation required, complete an application form for settlement and attend, at least at the moment, you'd have to attend a biometrics appointment as part of that process.
Okay. No, that's interesting. I think obviously this is a really helpful avenue for sort of companies looking to expand into the UK. But I wonder if you sort of explain how this pathway, this avenue, can be helpful for sort of existing visa holders in the UK already.
Sure. So as you said, it's useful to businesses that are seeking to expand to the UK, or it could be for an individual entrepreneur who's seeking to found a games company in the UK. In terms of those who are already in the UK, a global talent visa can be useful to any tech applicant, so a techie themselves or the business person with the business experience in the tech sector, particularly if they are wanting to start their own business. So for example, maybe they've been sponsored as a skilled worker, but they want to found a games company, then Global Talent would give them the freedom to do that. So that's the way in which it would be useful to UK visa holders that are already here. That could be somebody under any other route, for example, the graduate route, or somebody might be able to apply, depending on their experience, straight from the student route. But it's also useful to established games companies in the UK, because it can be an alternative to sponsorship. So sponsorship is a very reliable way to be able to employ non-UK nationals to work in the UK. but it's quite involved, and there are, several stages. It's more expensive than applying for one global talent visa. So for established companies that just need one person, that just need to hire one non-UK national, and that UK national, might be eligible for global talent, then global talent is a good alternative for that kind of established UK company to sponsorship, particularly in the early stages where they're maybe not wanting to devote a lot of resources to immigration. They'll not have to fulfill sponsor duties in relation to the worker, and overall it would be cheaper for the company if they're just looking to hire one non-UK national to use to support them in making a global talent visa application rather than applying for a sponsor license and then sponsoring that individual to work in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an interesting alternative to sponsorship. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Samar. I really appreciate you coming along here and informing us on all things global talent visa. I really appreciate it. I think there's an awful lot to consider, and we'll also we'll include another video webinar that you've recorded in the description of this video. We'll link to that. Very, very interesting, sort of much deeper dive into the global talent visa that you can take a look at. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And thank you today as well for our audience who've tuned in to catch this video. There's plenty of other need to know videos out there on our Ukie TV channel on YouTube. Thanks for enjoying this one, and more very soon.